So they are soldiers from Lithuania. There's some others from Germany as well. But look what they have tucked into their pockets. They have little American flags just below the flag of their own countries sewn onto their sleeves. In the capital city of Lithuania yesterday, thousands of soldiers and dignitaries, and also just ordinary people, lined up in the streets to pay their respects and to honor 4 American soldiers who died in Lithuania this past week during a training exercise. The ceremony was attended by the president of Lithuania, who gave a speech on the occasion. He said that for Lithuanians, serving your country is not just a duty, but an emotion. And you could really see that among the people who gathered. Lithuanian citizens were moved to tears, moved to genuine grief. But again, this was a ceremony for Americans, for American soldiers. Officials arranged for an archbishop to bless the motorcade before it drove to the airport to start the process of returning those remains, returning those soldiers to the U.S. In our country, of course, it is a sacred tradition that when members of the armed services die in the line of duty overseas, their remains come home to the U.S. on what's called a dignified transfer. Their remains are flown home specifically to Dover Air Base with American flags draped over the coffins. It's a very somber, very important, very serious, very specific ceremony. And a dignified transfer is often attended by the President of the United States as a sign of respect from the Commander-in-Chief. After that very moving send-off from Lithuania and from the government and the people of Lithuania, the White House announced here in the United States that when those 4 young fallen American soldiers landed back home here in the U.S., President Donald Trump would not attend the dignified transfer. He would not be waiting at Dover to pay respects to the service members who died, even as Lithuania's president made sure he was there to see them off. Donald Trump has decided instead that he's going to Florida to watch a golf tournament and to go to a golf dinner tonight. You know, given his previous comments, I guess you could say this is consistent with his apparent level of investment on this issue. I got to tell you, we do not play a lot of tape of Donald Trump talking on this show. We sort of it's not a hard and fast rule, but kind of a rule of thumb on this show is that we try to cover what the president does rather than just what he says. He gets plenty of coverage for what he says. I prefer to focus on actions rather than his words. In this case, though, I'm going to make a little bit of an exception. I think what he said here is its own kind of action. I just want you to see it. It's very brief. This is how Donald Trump, President of the United States, responded when he was asked about the service members in Lithuania after they were first went missing.
Mr. President, have you been briefed about soldiers in Lithuania? Have you been briefed about the soldiers in Lithuania who are missing?
No, I haven't.
It's confirming that at least 3 national security aides were fired today, while other news outlets report that the number could end up being higher. Notable that this latest purge is happening a week and a half after Signalgate, a scandal for which no one has been fired that we know of, but one for which we learned this afternoon will be the subject of a DOD Inspector General's investigation involving Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Everyone is back. You know, if you're here, we were going to get to the Hegseth of it all. And the Laura Loomer, just for you.
I mean, that felt like a report from like a movie, like Don't Look Up or something. Maybe you're a fake, you know, you get to play yourself in a movie. No, that's real. Laura Loomer is such a wild-eyed conspiracy theorist. I mean, she's an unapologetic. I think you had on quotes in the intro. A white nationalist, like, has said that about herself. Like, cheered the deaths of Muslims. Said that, like, she hopes for more. I mean, like, a just nasty person. I will say, when I was at a bar one time when Carrie Lake accosted me, and Laura Loomer did de-escalate. So I don't have any personal things against her. So I appreciated that. But she is a.
Are they friends?
Didn't seem like it. She's a crazy person, and anybody who doesn't believe it could just Google Laura Loomer crazy or just look at her X feed if they wanted to get a sense for this. The fact that she is in the White House talking to the president saying you should fire people who are in charge of national security, and he apparently said, okay, Laura, great, and fired a couple of people who are in his National Security Council or support the National Security Advisor, and That's how the country's being run. And we have a Fox and Friends weekend host that is running the military, so it shouldn't be that surprising. But I think that it is really just important to marinate on that the people with power in the White House or outside the White House are these extreme fringe conspiracy theorists that have big followers online, and that they can dictate who is in charge of our country's security, your family's security. And just on this point, one other thing, over at the DOJ today, they had a briefing at the Department of Justice, and it was Bannon, Benny Johnson, and it was just a whole rogues gallery of Loomer-esque weirdos that were having a briefing at the DOJ about the politicization of our government. So, Justice Department, national security decisions are being decided by MAGA conspiracy bloggers. So that should help you sleep at night.
Sarah, again, I sort of want to widen the aperture here to the many, many conversations we had about the generals and how impactful their warnings about Donald Trump's really, they weren't about his policies or his politics. They were about his indifference, maybe, to long-held beliefs and norms about the rule of law, about keeping politics out of the military. They've blown all that up gleefully over 71 days. Is that sort of seeping into the body politic?
Well, just really quickly, we knew that this term, if Donald Trump won, was going to be wildly different than his first term because those generals were there the first time. You were just asking in the last, segment why voters sort of didn't understand. And it's because, when you take your kids bowling and they're little, so they put up those little gutter things that when they
I put those things up. Yeah, the bumpers.
The bumpers, right? The generals were like the bumpers. Donald Trump's first term was filled with career Republicans who acted like bumpers against all of his insane ideas and who protected him essentially from himself. And those bumpers are all gone. And so we are living in the gutter 100% of the time with people like Laura Loomer. And the fact is, no, it is not clear yet, I think, to voters until they feel the negative personal consequences from what Trump is doing. And I think the tariffs, I've started to hear it in the groups. And last time I was on your show was really the first time it had started to bubble up. It's the economic stuff. Even Doge, some people are nervous about it. They don't love Elon Musk, but people have to they have to touch the stove, right? They have to feel the negative personal consequences before they're really going to turn on him. And that's why I think the tariffs are one of the things that are really going to start shifting the environment for Donald Trump, because they will have real world negative impacts on people's wallets fast.
It's Friday night. Feels like it, right? That said, may I suggest that you go to bed kind of early, hydrate, eat your Wheaties in the morning, maybe put off the Friday night cocktail to make it a Saturday night cocktail this week, if at all. I'm only saying that because tomorrow is going to be very busy. Saturday is going to be very busy. I said at the top of the show there are more than 1,200 protests planned for tomorrow in all 50 states. I stand corrected. It is more than 1,300 protests planned in all 50 states. It's expected to be the largest single day of protest since Donald Trump took office. Joining us now is Ezra Levin. He's co-founder of Indivisible, which is one of the groups that is promoting these events tomorrow. Ezra, thanks very much for joining us tonight. You were here just a couple of 3 weeks ago talking about the earliest idea for April 5th being sort of a hub for events all over the country and in Washington. How has the organizing gone? What has the response been compared to what you expected?
Gosh, Rachel, it's been incredible. Can I just say it has been incredible. We knew when we announced 3 weeks ago on the show that this was going to be the week where we saw an election in Wisconsin. We were cautiously optimistic about that election in Wisconsin for the Supreme Court. We didn't know we were going to kick Elon Musk's butt all across the state, but we were cautiously optimistic. We also didn't know that Cory Booker was going to give this incredible speech, inspiring all of us and telling us that he was taking a stand in response to pushes from his own constituents. And we also didn't know that Donald Trump was going to launch a global attack on the economies of not our economy, but the global economy. This confluence of events, this sense that they are overreaching so much and there is a possibility to fight back and win, is leading to this just incredible response. As you said, more than 1,300 events every single state. Yes, there are over 100 events in California. There are more than 60 in the state of New York, more than 50 in Washington. But it's not just blue states, Rachel. We see 17 events across the state of Montana, 14 across Alaska. This is everywhere. We're not just talking about one event in every state. We're talking about multiple, sometimes dozens of events. And these are normal, everyday people who are saying, hey, I've had enough. I've seen institutions fall. I've seen the universities. I've seen businesses. I've seen law firms not stand up, not support our liberal democracy. So what am I going to do as an individual? Well, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to show up. That's what tomorrow is about. And it's, gosh, Rachel, it is inspiring to see so many people hop on board this train.
The theme under which this is sort of loosely organized is hands off. I've seen people use all sorts of different types of phrasing around the different types of protests that they're going to be part of, and it seems like it's lots of different groups who are organizing, and in some cases it's no groups, it's just individual people who are coming out with their friends and neighbors. But it seems like the hands-off messaging is the most overarching phrase that we're going to hear tomorrow, and the most overarching idea, right?
One of the beautiful things about this is it's meeting people where they are. We're all coming to this for a different reason. We can say, hands off the Department of Education, hands off our Social Security, hands off our Medicaid, hands off trans kids, hands off our communities, hands off our civil rights, hands off our democracy. Different things are bringing different people to this fight. That's good. That's okay. We can all come together and say, no. And that
you could see Trump is continuing to disrespect veterans in his actions, both by refusing to attend events for fallen soldiers and their families, because it's about honoring those who have given the ultimate sacrifice, right? But also their families, right? Because they're the ones left behind. It's disrespectful to all of them, right? This is a man that, again, apparently loves the troops, supports them so dearly, right? But as we see, would rather, and again, it's not like, look, the president's a very busy man. It could be that he wanted to attend events like this, and then lo and behold, some international crisis happens, and the president can't attend. It's sad, but it can happen. But Trump went golfing. We talked about this yesterday. He was golfing, fiddling while Rome burns. The least important thing he could be doing. There is nothing less important than what he was doing yesterday that could justify, skipping out on veterans and families and fallen soldiers. Absolutely insane actions. And then you also have him disrespecting public servants, many of whom are veterans, disproportionately likely to be veterans. And also putting the country at risk by firing people, I guess, at least partially based on the recommendation of conspiracy theorists on the far right. Is Trump making hiring and firing decisions based off of what far-right media figures tell him? Up until this point, probably, but I guess we didn't have proof. But now we seem to have some kind of evidence that is at least in the direction of proof. And so if you're a soldier, active or former, or you're a spouse of one of those people, and you say, oh, well, the president is hiring and firing national security people based on the whims of unqualified conspiratorial deranged minds, that makes me and my family less safe, and Trump's a scumbag for it.